welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining my colleague Tim and I. We're excited to spend the next 45 minutes or so with you talking a little bit about Northeastern University and specifically our two institutes, the Roux Institute and the Institute for Experiential AI, and then just really have a discussion about AI that all of you helped us conceive. We got a bunch of great questions ahead of time and we're excited to dive in. But before we get to questions, we just wanted to talk a little bit about Northeastern in 2024. Many of you are alumni, and so know Northeastern very well. But just to kind of paint the picture of where we are today, Northeastern University is a global university really focused on experience and impact in the world. We're really known for our experiential learning model, which we were founded with and have continued to evolve over time. We have currently 13 campuses throughout our global Northeastern network, soon to be 14 as we bring on Northeastern New York City. And we have about 44,000 students, about half undergraduate and half at the graduate level. We are an R1 research university and are really focused on research that has impact in the real world. And I'd love to talk a little bit now about the Roux Institute, which is an institute that's in Portland, Maine. It was the 11th campus in the global university system. And it's a special partnership between David and Barbara Roux, the Harold Alfond Foundation, and Northeastern University. In 2020, David Roux and Barbara Roux. David is an entrepreneur who's from Lewiston, Maine, and really saw that throughout the world, talent and ambition are distributed equally, but that opportunity isn't. And a lot of opportunity in the tech economy was really concentrated in megacities, in London, in Silicon Valley, and that opportunity should be distributed to more cities throughout the world. And so he brought this vision to start an institute focused on tech and life sciences here in Portland, Maine. He went and looked for partner universities that could help make his vision a reality and ultimately selected Northeastern University. And one of my favorite things that he sort of says about Northeastern is that it's an elite institution without being elitist. And so when we think about kind of the future of AI, that future is going to need to be born not just from, several hundred PhDs that have this expertise, but from all of us. As we prepare for the AI era. And so we're about 5 years in at the Roux Institute, and we have 725 graduate students, 340 alumni. We're working with our partners to upskill their employees. We have research operations and we're supporting startups throughout the state of Maine. And so really our vision is to catalyze economic development for the state of Maine and beyond through programs in research, learning, and entrepreneurship with partnerships with industry, government, and academia at the center of what we do. And we're really fortunate to be here in beautiful Portland, Maine, and building a permanent campus that will house a 240,000 square foot research and learning center that we plan to move into in 2027. Tim, do you want to talk a little bit about the Institute for Experiential AI and who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing I learned today through a teammate was, those of you who are alumni and they're familiar with the co-op program and the experiential part of what makes it special, but we're the number one. We're in that co-op department for 15 years. Which is, I think, an impressive statistic. I'm sure many of you out there today probably participated. I know you probably participated if you graduated. But my name is Tim Weidinger. I am the Director of Business Development at the Institute for Experiential AI. It is our mission at the Institute to bring human-centric, responsible AI solutions to the challenges that both industry leaders, community leaders, governmental leaders, and individuals are faced with every day. We do that with keeping a responsible lens on everything that we build. And of course, we're very, very passionate about keeping a human in the loop. And I think that is core to Northeastern's priorities, which is that experiential. You've got to get in there with real people and you have to solve real problems. And that's truly where the real developments come from. As part of the Institute, a team supports 5 focus areas. We have a AI for health team and AI for life sciences team. We have a team that's entirely dedicated to the practice of responsible AI. We actually have a team of builders made up of senior engineers and computer scientists from all over the world, literally, who can come in and solution and build anything from a chat bot to a recommendation engine. And we have an AI for climate sustainability team, which is, I know, near and dear to the Maine community and climate. So excited to be here. I know, Liz, like, I didn't have a technical background. I spent a lot of years on Wall Street and then Gartner, and I'm not an engineer or a programmer by trade, but I really immersed myself in this artificial intelligence world. And I use it, personally every day. We use it obviously to leverage with people and their challenges. But I mean, did you have a technical background before you got here?
Yeah, so we were just talking a little bit before joining this webinar about kind of how do we describe our backgrounds, how do we describe ourselves, and sort of why we're the right people to be here talking to you today about AI. And I also didn't come from a technical background. I came from a background in strategy and partnerships, mostly in the kind of K-12 and higher ed space. But when we think about the institute that we're trying to build and the Northeastern that we want to build, it's going to take people with all kinds of backgrounds to really make what we want to see a reality, which is the responsible use of AI. For those of you who are alums and maybe some others, we really do take the sort of robot-proof ethos, which is President Aoun's book. How do we think about combining technological literacy with human literacy? How do we sort of take people who are skilled in certain areas and make sure that they have not just the technical skills, but the human skills as well? And so, like Tim, I came to Northeastern 4.5 years ago from a sort of non-traditional background and have really had the privilege of getting to work on kind of building the AI economy of the future here in Maine that is inclusive and thoughtful and sort of takes into account both the benefits that we hope to reap from AI while also keeping in mind kind of what the risks are. And so I think what Tim and I have both learned is, and I don't mean to speak for you, but from our conversations is it's messy, it's hard, the technology is changing every day. And some of the questions really ask, like, how do I get started? And so kind of what would you say to that question?
As I walk around this institute, it's incredibly special because the data literacy is here and the technology literacy is here. But what they do an incredible job of is sprinkling in that human literacy. And I think when people talk about AI and Gen AI, they tend to just get caught up into the technical weeds. And it's not. Like, if you can combine that data literacy with the technical literacy and also be a human being, you are in what Silicon Valley would call a unicorn. And so I think that as you think about your journey, whether it be in industry or as an individual, keep that in mind. Like, it's really, really, really important.
And sort of that goes to kind of our first question, which is, how do you see AI impacting our daily work and decision-making processes in the next few years? And I would say, for myself personally, I use AI every day, from the sort of, generative AI applications to save time, to be more productive, to, the AI that we're interacting with all the time, right? When you think about your GPS, when you think about sort of predictive ordering, your Amazon is reminding you that you're out of toilet paper, like those, AI is everywhere. And so I think when I think about decision-making processes and critical thinking, I think really taking the time to kind of understand, where is it? What is it? What are some of the benefits and what are some of the risks is really important. And just get started. Just play with the productivity tools. Understand what the capabilities are. Tim, you're one of the most curious people that I've worked with, and you're sort of sending articles and podcasts and sort of updates every day on sort of how the technology is evolving. And that's been incredibly helpful. What are your thoughts on how it's going to impact us?
Well, I think we think about it all the time. And I think even before we got on camera today, I was like, I can't, it's impossible to predict where we'll be 6 months out, right? Let alone 12. I mean, that's how fast things are moving. If you asked, Dr. Fayyad, who is the executive director at the Institute of Experiential AI, he would tell you, AI's been around for 40 years, 50 years, and he's seen a couple of winters. And is this real this time? I think the real shift was Gen AI when ChatGPT launched in the fall of 22. And my personal journey, to be candid, 7, 8 years ago, I probably is what they would call a P10 doomer, which is like Skynet, Terminator, like they're going to come for us, take our jobs, take over the world. And then, a few years ago, when I started getting very curious, it became very evident to me that it's a tool. And for somebody like me, who has spent most of his life without that tool, I was fascinated at how it created efficiencies in my life that I just couldn't have imagined. I mean, I bet I saved 15 hours a week just in using simple tools like Perplexity, ChatGPT. Someone on our demand team and marketing team put a presentation with Gamma, which is fascinating. Like Notebook LM, to build like it's fascinating. And so I just keep digging in and I keep learning. And a lot of the questions that we saw ahead of time were around that, like, hey, how do I get involved? And I think to your point, it's just like, get involved, because if you don't, it's going to be a real challenge, I think, so experiment, get group chats at work together, share ideas, and continue to just move with it because it is here to stay. And I think we should be really, really feeling excited about that. I think we touched on this. This is from a college student who was wondering about future-proofing their career. And is it less about picking a safe job and more about constantly updating your skills? We spoke to President Ayun's vision and how he saw the world back in 2017. But, what is your thoughts around that? Like, is it just a 4-year degree? Do I need to just get into this program and study this or that? Or is it like going to be a lifelong journey of upskilling? Like, how do you look at that?
Most of what I've seen and what I've experienced from employers is that they do want people to come into the workforce being AI literate. How they define that is really different. But I think kind of having a fundamental understanding of not just AI, but also data, right? I think that, some of my colleagues here, Dan Klosky, who's our head of learning here at the Roux Institute, talks a lot about just how essential it is to have basic data literacy and an understanding of, even if you can't understand the really advanced models, do you understand sort of the fundamentals behind the model, how it works? Do I sort of have enough of an understanding of what the AI is capable of to be able to make recommendations, to be able to have a fluent conversation in the business world about what the right applications are? What do I know and how can I contribute to a discussion about whether or not AI is the right tool for the business problem that we're facing? And so I think it's not just about being technical and having a technical understanding. You also need to have an understanding of business and how it can be applied in business. And so I think it's important to kind of build your AI literacy. Northeastern has a number of courses for everyone from sort of the first year college student all the way to someone who's looking to reinvent themselves, right? We have coursework that really speaks to the fundamentals, the sort of highly technical, all the way to the very like, what is AI and what should I know about it? And so I think from an employer point of view, really understanding the technology, but equally as importantly, having critical thinking skills, communication skills are going to become more and more important as this technology is able to do more and more routine tasks.
I would say, I just to continue to rip on that a little bit, like you may have noted Google had earnings, and I believe the number they used was 25% of all their coding was generated through Gen AI. And so, some people, doomers might default to, well, programming, the life of a programmer is done. The shelf life is potentially non-existent, to which I would say you have to have that foundational part of it, right? And where we have found, and what our message is at the Institute for Experiential AI is, it makes good programmers great, and it makes great programmers even better, because you do have to have that foundational understanding of data, technology. Anybody could go write a program right now or ask ChatGPT to do it or whatever LLM you're using. But what I can't do, I don't know enough to look at the output to say, hey, that makes sense. And that's why it's so important to, have that foundational understanding of what's going on. What I can do is put a lot of information in there for a presentation or a briefing and say, yeah, that makes sense. Thank you for ingesting those 37 documents that I didn't want to read. And that's pretty close to what I would have presented. So, it depends. But I do think, the day of getting like a 4-year degree and just sailing through your career are probably over. I think it's no longer like end-to-end journey. Education is an end to infinity journey, and the resources at Northeastern University are phenomenal in terms of just providing that support for lifelong learners. I mean, just around here, there's people from all walks of life, every corner of the globe. I mean, every age. I mean, it's fascinating to see, and continue to stay curious and continue to learn, I think, is the answer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, transitioning to a question here from industry is, what have you found to be the best strategy for company-wide adoption of AI? And I'll kind of bridge from that conversation to the next, which is, as I mentioned in my intro, the Roux Institute is really focused on partnerships, not just with industry partners, but also with all types of organizations to really boost the economy here in Maine. And Northeastern has 3,500 partners who have partnered with us for co-op. But in Maine, we partner not just for co-op, but also we do workforce upskilling. We work with your institute to provide AI solutions. And then we also do projects with our graduate students. And one of the projects that we're working on right now with the largest regional bank in Northern New England, which is Bangor Savings Bank, which is based a couple hours up the road from us in Portland, they really understood that they were not where they needed to be to take advantage of this AI moment. They were working on their business strategy, really knowing that AI needed to be a core part of the future, and recognizing that in order to make that a reality for them, they needed to figure out some strategies to help move their whole organization along in understanding more about AI, really building that AI fluency and data literacy. And so I think for them, it was really about, how do we make sure that our board kind of knows and understands those capabilities? So they worked with Dr. Fayed, who you mentioned, to kind of have their board understand those capabilities. They recognized they needed to understand from their own organization, how are folks feeling about AI? Are they worried about their jobs? Are they worried about kind of what the future holds? And then build programming, learning experiences, the ability to develop new capabilities for the bank and data science. And so we're partnering with them to kind of take a look holistically at their organization, recommend learning experiences by role, and then also work deeply with your institute to develop some of those AI applications in-house, which will also make them better consumers ultimately.
On that note, the conversations that we have every day at the Institute, again, from industry leaders to government leaders, is, we buy something, do we build something, do we build something, do we buy something? And I think the learnings of the institutes over the past 4 or 5 years have showed us that, if you just think that you can be a leader and go build yourself some Gen AI tool or take something off the shelf, I think you're kind of not looking at it as holistically as you need to. You need to make sure that you have the people on staff who can uphold it, who can stand it up in the org. So it's not just about delivering a tool. It's about educating everybody around that tool to make sure that not just that they know how to use it, but that they know how to use it responsibly. If you are on this call and you are from industry, your data is your DNA. And I think what makes you unique, what makes Bangor Savings unique over some other regional bank or some global bank, is their people and their data. And you have to be very mindful of that. So it's not just about delivering a tool. It's about, what do they say? Teach a man to, or give a man a fish, or teach a man to fish, however that saying is. But where we really thrive is teaching you how to fish, and also learning with you, because 70 of the last 100 years, a lot of the greatest innovations were coming from academia. And the more tech-centric we got, candidly, all the cool stuff is coming from industry. And then we have to stay connected to that, because, we have to continue to prepare our learners for the world they're about to get into. So we're really curious about what industry is doing. It helps inform our curriculum, and ultimately helps us provide learners who are more able to jump into the world out there and contribute sooner than most.
Absolutely. And I think, one of the sort of stories that kind of ties this all together for me is one of the folks who we're working with very deeply at Bangor Savings Bank in this engagement. He's a 27-year bank employee. He started in IT. He took a workforce upskilling course with us here at the Roux Institute. He then had the opportunity to work with your group on a recommendation engine that was going to help them really make better recommendations to their customers. And he is now getting his degree in data science and has really kind of reinvented himself toward the later end of his career, which I think, we talk a lot about the moment that we're in is an opportunity for a lot of people to kind of reinvent themselves, find a new career. We talk about sort of the diverse population that we have in our graduate students here. We have folks who are wedding photographers. We have folks who are teachers. We have folks who are nurses who are coming back and saying, hey, in order to either kind of persist in my current profession or find something new, I know that I need to get these skills because these are the skills of the future. And I think, some of my favorite stories are of those kind of later career pivoters who are coming back to say kind of what's next for me.
Several of the questions that we saw beforehand were, how do we get started? And I would say from an industry perspective, right? Like maybe the recommendation engine isn't something that you want to go out and build. But the exercise that we have found to be successful is to, get inside your organization, work with and find and identify the decision makers in that organization, identify the areas that you feel might be the best place to start. That could be creating efficiencies internally. It could be generating ROI externally. But basically, our subject matter experts can go and sit with you and kind of help you identify, like, where is the best place to start and how? And that happens through like any other sort of top-down funnel thing, right? It's like you get a bunch of people in a room, you talk it out, you put some subject matter experts in there who've actually done these things, and you say, yes, yes, no, no, yes, yes. And ultimately, we help you set your course, your compass, your digital journey compass. And what great looks like when that happens is all of the things you just described, which is maybe it's not the right time for us to build something. Maybe we do need to just educate our workforce. Maybe we need to take advantage of the co-op opportunities and bring a different perspective from outside the organization inside the organization. I mean, every conversation is different from, I'll be on the phone talking to a government agency about how they can take homeless applications from 30 weeks down to 12. And then I'll be talking to a manufacturing company, the next call who's got 14,000 SKUs, and they're trying to become more efficient with their order management system. So everything is different. Everyone is different. Every org is different. And I think what we do best is work with them and we're flexible enough to kind of understand their uniqueness.
I think one of the other sort of on that point, I think one of the other interesting things about kind of getting a chance to work with both experts and business and sort of bringing together our students and experts sort of in the field is that we have conversations about when AI isn't the right tool.
Yeah.
Right. So I think, within the context of a business problem, really figuring out like, is AI the right sort of solution to this problem? And it feels like a lot of conversations that we've had over the last year, especially AI is always the answer, right? Yeah. The answer is always AI can do that. AI can do that. And I think kind of coming into the end of 2024, I think a lot of folks are asking, well, should AI do that? Even if it can, is that the right tool to get the outcome that I want? And I think, the sort of big topic that we're hearing come up a lot is what does it mean to have an ethical and responsible approach to AI? Yeah. So kind of what would you say in terms of, I think we had a question that was also about the sort of responsible and ethical use of AI. How does that practice think about what that means?
Yeah, our responsible AI practice is incredibly unique. I mean, the intellectual capital that's there is very special. I mean, these are people whom, Interpol or governments call to help inform policy. And I think that's really unique. You get a group of ethicists and philosophers together, and they really think about the world differently than your engineers do, your lawyers do, your whomever does. And so it's the way we look at that is it's always there. It's an ever-present part of your strategy, and it should always be. I mean, financial services, I think the term that would land probably better is de-risking. That probably lands better at a bank like Bangor than it might do with a healthcare company. But in essence, whatever technologies you're looking at implementing, you always should start with that ethical, philosophical, is this the right thing for us? And, that can do everything from, making sure that there aren't automatic biases associated with it, right? I mean, what this really is about is keeping your logo off the cover of the Wall Street Journal and ending up in some $400 million lawsuit. And that's, so as we approach, not just through learning, but when we're building especially, like, we're always cognizant of making sure that whatever it is we're doing has that responsible lens on it, so that you can feel pretty confident that, you're not going to end up on the front page of maybe the main Daily Herald.
The Portland Press Herald.
Portland Press Herald. Sorry. I just moved here in December.
We have a question, so we're going to go to our live questions.
Hi there, guys. Thanks for doing this today. Really appreciate it. One of you had mentioned sort of experimenting with different AI tools and just getting into the waters. If you had to recommend 3 to 5 good apps to start with, what would those apps be, in your opinion? Definitely
ChatGPT. I think any of the models would probably be sufficient. 4.0 is great, the mini's great. Incredible amount of functionality, more than you probably ever need. I think, I don't remember the last time I Googled anything. I think Perplexity is something that you'd want to have in your arsenal. I think creatively, the Google Notebook LM is a fascinating tool that can take anything from a document to a website to a PDF and build a briefing doc for you. It will actually build a podcast that you wouldn't be able, most of the people in your social circle would never understand that this wasn't real, but you can make that in like 5 minutes. And, I like Venice AI, I think is one that I kind of like to play around with personally. They take a different stance on your privacy, unlike a lot of these, the Magnificent Seven, if you will. So I would say, ChatGPT for sure. I mean, if you want to go like Llama, if you're a Facebook Meta guy or gal, I mean, that's probably fair. All the the tools that are running through your tech stack right now, from Copilot with your Microsoft stack to Gemini with your Google stack. I mean, these are all really, really good things.
Just to build kind of on that last point, is that a lot of the sort of technology that you're probably using every day, a lot of the applications that you're using every day, the Microsoft suite, creatives, the Adobe suite, like they are building in and making a bet on AI. And so I think, a great place to start, especially if you're using these tools at work, is within your own company's tech stack and really kind of understanding, what am I approved to use within my company? If I'm using a third-party LLM like a ChatGPT or Perplexity, do I understand what I should and shouldn't put into those tools if I'm using them at work and for work is super important. I like Perplexity because you get the scan of kind of what is the source material? Where is this information actually coming from? They sort of provide that right at the top, which I really appreciate and is super helpful. And then I would also say, while this isn't a set of tool recommendations, there's new tools coming out every day. So listening to a podcast like
the AI Daily Brief, it's a 15-minute quick hit, 5-minute high level, 10-minute deep dive, and all the latest, greatest.
Yeah. I think the Superhuman AI newsletter also comes out with, like, I think I just saw a headline that's like, what you might not know about Perplexity. And I'm like, oh gosh, I got to read that now. So now, I think that like the technology is just moving so fast that the sort of apps and tools that we're recommending today are maybe going to be, the sort, or like not the hot thing by tomorrow. And so I think those are great places to start. But then what I'm also spending time thinking about is how can I be kind of a more conscious consumer? I think my next step is, well, what are the ones that are trying to use less compute or trying to think about their carbon footprint? And so I think that those are some of my maybe 2.0 aspirations, while I kind of started with the Perplexities and ChatGPT is kind of how can I be sort of a more conscious consumer in the future is something that I'm aspiring to. One of the other questions that we had was around kind of education itself and how education is changing and how we think AI is going to impact education. And I think that one of the important things that I hopefully is coming through in this discussion is that making an even bigger bet on what humans can uniquely do is going to be essential. And so President Unwin talks about that a lot, but I think that really understanding what AI can't replace and how AI can enhance what humans are uniquely able to do is going to be essential for the future of education. And so when I think about the things that AI can do, I can rattle off that it can help with simulations, it can help with practice, it can help with scenario-based learning. There's already a lot of work with sort of digital twins where you're able to kind of see a model rather than having to go to the factory for training, you can actually be immersed in a training model for learning how to use a really high-tech tool, et cetera. So I think that a lot of the applications are already being demonstrated and tried. There's a lot of work in sort of virtual reality and immersive reality that I think will play a bigger and bigger role. But I think the sort of thing that we're really focused on here at Roux is how do we really double down on Northeastern's experiential approach? How do we say we learn best by doing, we learn best by problem solving, we learn best by being social and having that learning be something that's social and collaborative, because we think that that is actually the future. But I'm curious kind of your take on education.
Yeah, well, first, it didn't go unnoticed by me that there was more than one pre-question around, can my professor tell if I'm using AI to write this? Can somebody tell if I'm using AI to build that? And the answer right now is no. And anyone who tells you differently is scaring you, probably.
I have one counter to that, but I'll let you finish.
You do? Okay. I mean, they're getting better, watermarking, but there's a big fear out there. You know, if there's anybody on this call who maybe is at the beginning of their digital or AI journey, that AI is going to replace me or it's going to replace my job. And that just is not true. But there is a real risk if you don't embrace some of these things, depending on your role. Like someone who is leveraging these tools to become more efficient could. It's a tool. Humans, I think we just need to embrace it. It's like anything else. It's not, like you said, predictive AI. AI has been around a really long time, but this generative AI thing is changing a lot of the way that we're thinking about the world and how we can interact in it.
And I think my counter to your no, they can't tell is I did just read an article about a faculty member who sort of put in the kind of like red herring data so that if this particular source was cited, they'd be able to tell. So I do think that folks are getting smarter, folks are figuring it out. And I think the more important thing I would say is, so I have a fifth grader right now who is, he's currently writing a report. I was helping him with it last night. And I kind of recognize that he's not really being discerning in any way about his sources. He is just taking the first answer that comes up when he searches something. And I think that the future of education is really going to rest on, can we actually find a ground truth? Can we actually agree on reliable sources, and can we sort of have a fundamental understanding of what it means to kind of know something when it's produced by AI or not. And so I think that for the university system and for kind of the work that we are doing, being able to sort of say, when is information that AI produces reliable and accurate, and when is it not, and when do I need to check? And that skill of being able to be discerning around sources when it's going to become harder and harder to tell whether those sources are reliable and accurate, I think that is also going to help sort of win.
Yeah, it speaks back to that sort of like having that foundational understanding of, this makes sense, this doesn't. This program makes sense, it doesn't. This output makes sense and it doesn't. So I think for younger people out there, it's important to build that foundation around anything that you're interested in doing, because you can't just you cannot take what comes out of these models as truth. You just can't.
Bringing it back to the kind of world of industry, we got a question that's how do you change a company culture resistant to change and explore and adopt AI in our operations? Which is such a great question. And I think from the sort of partners that we work with, everyone is taking sort of a different approach that feels right for their culture, for the moment that they are in, based on the industry, based on sort of kind of their history. But I would say that some of the themes from successful adoptions that we've seen is to sort of apply any change management techniques that have worked for your organization in the past. Just like, years ago, it was about customer experience. It was about 360, whatever the sort of change in the business was. You find your champions, you find your early adopters, you find the folks who are then kind of able to take the initiative out into the organization and really demonstrate kind of the benefits of that adoption. And so I think that sort of having it be the way that you would sort of typically approach any change management initiative, And it's important to recognize that there's a lot of fear for folks' jobs in a way that is maybe different from some of those other previous initiatives, that it's not just about change and I'm resistant, it's about what does this mean for me, my job, my livelihood, and being aware of that and taking that on as part of the change initiative is really important.
And I will say I think we have another question, so they get the second prize. Every organization's different. I mean, sometimes it starts with executive level education to try to build that confidence from the top. Sometimes it starts with the groundswell of adoption that, if there are any C-suite executives here, like your employees are using it, whether or not you think they are or not, they are. So it can go any direction. It can start at the bottom, it can start at the top, but eventually everybody has to get on that same page. So.
Hi, thanks for the content today. My question is, I work in the childcare industry, and we're very interested in being more inclusive of individuals with disabilities. So we have a lot of kids, especially on the autism spectrum, in our programs. And we also want to be better about employing individuals with disabilities as well. So just curious if there's anything specifically for the disability community that you would recommend.
If you are not familiar with understood.org, as a resource that's doing some good research and work into the AI and disability space, I'd recommend checking them out. Here at Northeastern and at the Roux Institute, we have a research practice that's focused on human data interaction and really thinking about kind of what and how do people interact with data and with AI in the world, and how do we make that more accessible? And so we've got some folks who are specifically focused on folks who have challenges with hearing, folks who have challenges with or are sort of visually challenged, and really working on applications to think about how to make work and life more accessible using those applications. We have Rupal Patel, we have Hari Palani. So I think there's a number of sort of research avenues at Northeastern that folks are kind of exploring. So if you haven't had a chance to look at the human data interaction practice or some of the sort of research pages on Northeastern's website, I'd also recommend taking a look there.
Two of the practice areas at EAI are health and life sciences, and there's so many exciting things happening there. What I can say for certain, and I'm not a subject matter expert, is the worst that will ever be is today. It's going to continue to get better and better and better, and the tools to support all walks of life it's fascinating. I've seen tools that people who have been blind their entire lives are, visually seeing and walking around forests. And I think what you should be optimistic about is it's going to get incredibly exciting. And again, it will not be any worse than it is today.
Before we close out, we just both wanted to say thank you. We're really grateful to everyone for spending what was hopefully your lunch hour, or maybe if you're tuning in from another part in the world, breakfast or dinner hour with us. We are really eager to partner in all ways. We are eager to find co-ops and projects for our students. We're eager to partner with industry to help solve your business problems and get your workforce ready for this AI future. Our researchers are eager to kind of put their skills and talents toward your problems. And so please, connect with us, reach out to us. We would love to learn more about who you all are.
Yeah, no, thanks for joining us. Just stay curious and, please reach out. I think everybody they can find us.
For sure.
Thank you all for attending, and thank you, Liz.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. This was fun.